Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Dr. Glenn is a clinical psychologist and former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leaving the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Before we get started, if you haven't downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
And I'm here with a kind-hearted woman named Karen, who has agreed to share her interview and her story with you so you can benefit from her experience and strength and hope and wisdom, as well as her trials and tribulations and stumbles and falls. Is that right, Karen? Karen, did I get it right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. I'm in a lot of trouble with Karen already because I keep saying her name incorrectly.
Oh, not at all.
She's going to call me Glean for most of the interview. Can you share with me a little bit about your food story before you came to us?
I've been struggling with binging my weight since I was probably 10 years old. I've tried a bazillion diets, all different programs, even supportive programs and counselors and many different things. And none of them stuck for very long. That's where I'm coming from.
When did you find us?
In June or July. And I had spent so much money on weight loss to help me for years. And it just made me feel great. And I did start a rule right away or fairly quickly. My first rule was I will never again eat non-whole food plant-based food between 1 and 4 p.m. because that's my big binge time. And it really helped.
That's such an interesting rule. So you were very specific that you wouldn't have anything besides whole food plant-based products or foods during the time that you usually got in trouble.
Yes. So then I just kind of kept to that. And then one day I was almost biting my nails, waiting till 1 o'clock so I could relax. Because I knew once 1 o'clock hit, then I didn't have to think about food anymore. Because if I was hungry, I could eat anything whole food plants-based, but I could stop thinking about the cookies or running out and getting something. Because between 1 and 4, I had complete peace. So I thought, okay, I think I'm going to extend this to all the time at home. And then I just struggled a bit. I thought, well, this is working really well, but I'm not losing any weight. I'm still struggling with the binging on other times a little bit. I know I've thrown a lot of money at things that didn't work, but I'm just going to try it. So I did. And I tell you what, listening to other people talk on your podcast about just when they've started for a couple months or less, I thought, wow, how can they really feel like they're doing well and things are going great after only 2 months? And I feel amazing. I have so much peace about food now. I'm not doing it perfectly, and I've had some struggles, which I'm actually happy about, because now I know I have the tools to help me overcome those obstacles.
You're not as scared anymore.
I'm not scared anymore. I celebrated my first binge. It wasn't a huge binge, but I was like, yes, okay, I know what to do. Write those reputations, listen to more podcasts, talk to the coaches and the Q&As. And I really felt empowered and at peace about it, because then I knew I could handle it in years to come.
So you said a couple of things I just wanted to underscore. People are constantly surprised that they could be doing so well after 60 or 90 days when they had a lifetime of struggle. It feels different that most people have been on a diet for 60 or 90 days and they were losing weight, but they felt the underlying fear that the binging was right around the corner because they weren't really addressing the addictive habits and the addictive thinking. If you do that within 60 days or so, if you look at the research on extinction curves, which in behavioral psychology, when certain behaviors are not reinforced and certain types of thinking are not reinforced constantly, they decouple from that automated trigger. They start to fade or extinguish. And it usually takes about 30 solid exposures. So if you set up a rule, the intention of which is to decouple the addictive pattern from the reinforcement, like you no longer eat processed foods between 1 and 4 o'clock, and therefore you suddenly had this window of freedom where you didn't have to obsess about food, you didn't have to worry about it. And your brain started to understand that there was no way to acquire the reinforcement it used to get for that kind of addictive thinking and that kind of addictive eating. You do that 30 or 40 days, and the relationship between the initial thoughts and triggers that led to the binge and the actual binging, it's mostly faded. I mean, you can reactivate it if you really want to, and some people choose to do that, but it's mostly faded. So you're not tortured with this horrible craving forever. You're not white knuckling day in and day out. There's a genuine peace that starts to overcome you, and people don't believe that it was possible until they do it. And then they think, oh, so as long as I don't go back to eating the way that I was, then I'm not going to have to deal with these cravings. And then the pig will come in and say, well, you're going to go back to eating the way you were. You can't help it. You always did, so you always will. And get into all of the rationalizations and pig squeals. But it's not unusual that after 60 days, people feel like they have a whole different life. And it takes some work. We gave you a bunch of stuff to do, right?
I worked hard on it.
Well, you want to talk a little bit about that? What kind of work did you get to do, and how did you find the energy and the time to do that?
I was determined. I wanted to make this work. And I'm glad I had that attitude. And I took the time. I thought, I'm going to take the time for myself and do this. I know from other things I do, I study French and Spanish, and you have to do the work to learn. I really worked hard on doing the refutations and making sure I sent in all my information and check-ins to the coach, which was great. And the Q&A's calls have been phenomenal. I'm actually going back and listening to all the ones while you were in the first 6 weeks.
Oh, yeah. The first few weeks, people come in, they're feeling kind of panicked and in a different state of mind than when they've been here for a while.
So the kick starts, I listened to every one. Even if I couldn't listen to it live, I'd go back and listen to the ones that were recorded. I'm doing that with the Q&A calls as well. I'm going back because everyone has been helpful. I've gotten some piece of information that have helped me greatly. And 2 things stick out in my mind. My family's been big bakers forever, and I enjoy it. I really like baking, but I have not enjoyed it fully for years because there was always this voice in my head saying, you're just going to eat the whole pan. It's not going to be good for you, and yada, yada. So bake if you want when you're feeling really, really strong, but make sure you can combat any of the triggers. And then don't have a cookie or a bar until the next day. You're training yourself to get used to refuting your triggers and the impulse. I haven't enjoyed baking that much for years and years and years. It was so much fun. And they came out of the oven and they smelled heavenly, but I was strong and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to have any today. I made a rule. I can't have it until the next day. So I gave one to my husband and got to smell it. And oh, they look great. And it was a lot of fun. And I did it again a week or 2 later. And again, the same thing. It was so enjoyable. And I never binged on the bars. And then I made cookies. I would like to lose about 1 pound a week. And I was concerned because I had been losing about a pound a week. My perfectionism got in the way and said, well, you're not going to be able to keep this up. Just throw it away and you'll have to start all over again. And then you said, well, just tell yourself you're going to be on hiatus or a break from losing a pound a week for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is. And my shoulders just dropped and I relaxed. I'm like, oh, that's great. So if I am struggling, it's okay. I can just take a break for a while until I get the strength or make a decision or find a new rule that helps me keep this pound a week up. So
Yeah.
I have such a greater outlook now.
You can always take a maintenance break if you want to and take a few weeks off of weight loss. You could lose a half a pound a week for a while if you want to. There might be another time you lose a pound and a half a week. Usually a pound is about the sweet spot. We don't like people to go too much faster. Slower is perfectly fine. You have a lot of options, whatever's most comfortable for you, as long as there's no medical emergency to take the weight off.
Sure. I feel confident for the first time in my life that I'll be able to continue with this, especially since I struggled for a while. After like 6 weeks, I would have just paid you all the money and said, what I have right now is worth it.
I'm glad.
It is. It really gives me a sense of confidence that I have some backup to continue this peace I have. I have complete peace. I have complete peace about food. The pig started squealing finally after about a month or 5 weeks. That was actually a good thing because then I got the confidence after making refutations.
How much time were you wasting recovering from binges as compared to the time you have now in your life?
That's not the easiest question just because the time in my head I wasted was a lot. I couldn't even begin to tell you. The pig squeals, the lizard brain talking to me constantly. So it's a lot of time in many ways because my head is free of that negative talk. And that's
Perfect.
huge.
Perfect. You've got your presence of mind back without the food obsession.
So much. It's worth it. Skip the weight loss. Never thought I'd say that, but just the freedom from that negative, horrible pig lizard brain talk has been monumental for me for the freedom of that. And then knowing that I'll be able to continue losing what I want to lose and eat what I want to eat, not be controlled by the pig saying, well, you want this, when I don't. The big why was phenomenal. I read it every day of why I do not want to eat certain things or eat an abundance of certain things so I can reach my goal of what I want for me and my health.
Beautiful.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. If you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.